of Listen, Talk, Repeat podcast. I'm Wendy Capewell, your relationship specialist, and this podcast is all about things relating and affecting relationships. I'll be interviewing guests who are experts in their profession, learning more about what they do and how they help others. In some episodes, I'll be sharing some insights and tips of my own. So settle back and enjoy. Hello, it's Wendy again, and today I'm going to be talking to Lovelda Vincenzi. I hope I've pronounced it correctly. You're going to tell me if I haven't. Lovelda is just such a lovely, lovely person. I met her at a speakers conference earlier this year. She was the MC there, and just fell in love with her. She's so delightful. She's so bubbly. And she was amazing. She held that whole conference together. She was the underpinning of that. And yeah, she is an international event MC and moderator. Come on, Lovelda, introduce yourself and tell me. I pronounce your name very incorrectly because I know it's an Italian surname.
Oh gosh, I get it all the time. My name's, it was difficult enough. Lovelda's hardly a common name, and then you add Vincenzi to it. It sounds really exotic, but it's just a mouthful. So I'm not even remotely bothered by it anymore. I'm really happy to be here, Wendy. Like you said, I'm an international MC, moderator, and speaker. The heck does that mean? Because I tell people I moderate and I host, and they're like, what is that? In a nutshell, when organizations and conference owners put on conferences, it's the person who introduces the speakers to the stage and kind of holds the event together. So it's a little bit of entertainment, but I'm not a performer of any description. But my role is to energize the audience, give the speakers a glowing introduction so the audience is excited to hear what they have to say, and give the organizers a little bit of a relief. So I've got to help keep the event to time. It's just a multitude of different things. And so, basically standing at the front of the house, ensuring that it all looks like it's going swimmingly smooth, even if behind the scenes, the organizers are having a little bit of a meltdown. But I love it.
Yeah, and I would really say that you did that so well on that event, and it was just such a delightful event. And I think we've got to know each other more since then, because I want to do more public speaking. I'd love to do more, and you're kind of encouraging me. So we chat quite often on Facebook, or you have events and live, Facebook lives, and I always come away feeling energized, and it's just so nice. But and I guess, that's building another kind of relationship, because we are all in relationships, aren't we?
Every time you have an opportunity to speak, it's an opportunity to build a relationship with somebody or create a connection.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes, and having that confidence, because I think that's something that certainly public speaking helps with.
Definitely. I think it's a little bit of confidence and it's a bit of courage. It's a mixture of the two. They're not quite the same thing, but it certainly helps you to be okay with being visible, be okay with saying what's important to you in the moment, or sharing your message, because it's very rare, unlike a comedian, right? It's very rare that somebody decides it's a really good idea to heckle a speaker. Normally people let you get on with it. So you can have an idea and just say your idea without being interrupted. It's wonderful.
It's about the confidence, but how do you think that affects relationships? I would say personal relationships, business relationships.
I think it's really fascinating. So I work exclusively with women. So I do work with women, helping them to monetize their speaking. So move from doing free speaking engagements into paid speaking engagements. And I am a firm believer that you cannot compartmentalize your life. We'd like to think so. So what do women present to me? Lovelda, I just need to get on more stages. I just do. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to get paid. But the reality is that because you can't compartmentalize your life, the dynamic you have with your significant other will only ever filter into your business. And the number of times I have conversations with, especially some of my high-end clients who come to me like, no, I just want to talk business. And I said, there's no point. There's no point, because right now you and your partner are having a tiffle or whatever it is. And we need to work out how you, not necessarily how you resolve that dynamic, but how you move it forward so that it's not, if you ignore anything, whether it's your finances, your relationship, whatever it is, if you ignore anything in business, you cannot expect that it's going to work, right? And the easiest thing to ignore is a relationship and hide in your business. That's what's easy to do. But the challenge is, especially when you are female and decide that you really want to put yourself 100% into your business and grow it, you will change as a person. And if the communication in your relationship was never on a solid ground, that creates insecurities, generally in your partner, sometimes in you. And those insecurities affect the way you do business. So you can't separate the two things. So if I give you a couple of examples, the sorts of challenges women tend to have in relation to business, and sometimes it's conscious and sometimes it's not so conscious, are things like, well, if I'm really, really successful and I then turn into the primary breadwinner instead of my partner, what's that going to mean for our relationship? Or if I really go for this and I can't make it work, I'm going to get so much pressure from them because they're relying on me to do everything. Either end of that coin is not healthy.
No. And I actually recently had a client where she wants to do something. She's struggling to find the right job for her. Mm-hmm. And all she keeps thinking is, but I'm not finding it. And I'm just so worried because I'm a drain on my partner. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it wasn't anything to do with her partner. He really assured her that, no, it's fine, but it's her history. It's her background. It's what her family, how they are. And so it's a real thing about money. So
it's sneaky. It kind of bleeds its way into it. And then you come and present to somebody like me and say, I need speaking gigs. I need them. I'm like, but why? Why do you need them so badly? And really what it is, it's rather than addressing and having the conversation and talking through it, and sometimes it's us, right? Sometimes it is literally just in our heads. Our partners couldn't care less. Yeah. Genuinely couldn't care less. Most supportive beings in the world, right behind us all the way. Right? Yeah. Our head is going off in a tizzle and assuming that we're having to take on all this extra responsibility, or assuming that we're a drain, or assuming all kinds of things, and then living into it as a reality. And then that energy goes into our business, when really, if we just focused on resolving the conflict. And I don't mean conflict in sort of a way of there's a fight or there's an issue, because sometimes the conflict's internal. It's got nothing to do with your partner. Sometimes internal conflict. But if that's not right and you're not facing it, that will then go into your business and it pollutes it, or it goes into your job, or and so one of two things happens. Either you can't be successful because the energy is so behind what you're doing is so desperate, and you're not in the right space to say, I just want to do this from a space of love, right? So you struggle there, or you struggle because you hide in the business, and so therefore you just neglect it altogether, right? So now it becomes your sanctuary. I am just going to hide in my business. It's my lovely cocoon, and maybe, like sweeping it under the carpet, maybe it will just sort itself out. It never does.
No, it doesn't. And again, I see, people, they're disconnected from their relationships. They're so focused on their business that they ignore their relationship, or they're spending so much time. They are both working so hard. They never see each other. Mm-hmm. They never connect. And how can you have a fully rounded life if you don't have that? And again, if things aren't right at home, you can't focus on your business, can you? Because it's always there, niggling away in the background.
It's just one of those things you kind of have to face head on. The way I've always looked at it is, we don't tend to start businesses just for the sake of the business. The business represents something, and some of it's to do with the people, the clients we have the pleasure of serving through our business, especially if you're in kind of a coaching or a service field. In a product field, it'd be the impact that you're able to have. So some of it's that, but some of it is the opportunities that opens up to you. And so I've always said to people, if you start your business by diving into it so much that you neglect your relationships, be it romantic or be it friendships, and think, right, I'll put a pin in that, and when I'm successful, I'll come back and I'll pick it up. What fool is waiting around for you? Like, just honestly, would you accept it from somebody?
But people do. I hear it over and over again. You knew where I was trying to build my business, and we were going to. When the kids grow up, we're focusing on the children. I'm like, you really, really think it's going to be there? It's crazy.
No, because time is moving on. Nobody. It's funny. I can't even remember who it was I was listening to. I think it was a podcast or a book. I can't remember. I wish I could reference it properly. But they talked to this concept of going short and going long. And what they meant by that was there are certain areas in your life where you can't go long. You can't decide, right, I'm just going to put it on hold. I'll come back to it in like 2 years. Yeah. And you can only ever play the short game, where you can have relationships are one of those, where you can have a period of maybe a couple of weeks where it's really intense. And I'm sorry, darling, I just can't spend the time with you I wanted to, because this is where the business is at. You can't live in that for 2 or 3 years and expect your relationship to have any spark left. How do you neglect a person for years? I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds ludicrous, right? Like, neglect a person for years and expect any self-respecting individual to be like, all right, then thanks, babes. Nice to have you back.
And then they wonder why they get distracted by somebody else. I was flirting, or I was texting, or I met somebody at work, and they wonder why that happens. Both partners will feel that way. And it's just crazy, as you say. You've got to have, yes, it's hard. Nobody's saying it's easy, because you've been running a full-time job, and you're getting this business more off the ground, and with the coaching, and also with your relationship. So I mean, you know what it's like to try and juggle it all, and no way is it easy.
It's not easy, but in the same way that you make a commitment to do stuff for your business, you've kind of got to. I remember having this conversation with my husband really early, and he said, I really love my company. I love my business. And I said, babe, I get that. And I'm not denying that you love your business, but it's not the only thing you love. Like, if everything else disappeared and that was all you were left with, you wouldn't be satisfied. Because you genuinely love the relationships with your friends. You have hobbies that you love and you enjoy doing. The best way I can think to describe it was thinking of the book. Why are my books going? The Power of Now, I think it was. And in it, I remember there was this phrase where it was looking at the concept of people who feel like they have that crisis where like their life is over, whether that is somebody who retires from a job that they've thrown their heart and soul into, or the kids leave home, right? Whatever that dynamic is. And the way that it was described in this book is, if you think of your life as having quadrants of different things you're interested in, when you make your life one box, and that box is work, or that box is your business, or it's, your kids, and that's it, that's your primary focus. When that goes, it does feel like your life has fallen apart.
Yeah.
It does, because you've got nothing else to kind of go to. Whereas if you nurture and spend some time, and it doesn't need to be a huge amount, but it's, when I'm talking to my clients about building their business, one of the things I say to them is it's about focus and structure. And focus is, what's really important for me to do. In business terms, what actually brings the money in. In relationship terms, what keeps the spark. What keeps us interested in each other. And normally it's communication. Normally it's quality. It's having that keeping that connection open. And for different relationships, the way that people connect is different, and you'll know what it is for you and your partner, right? So one is the focus to say, right, we're always going to focus on maintaining this connection. For me and my husband, we've got to just make time. It's important. The second then is the structure that you have to support that. Because it's almost like saying, right, that's it. I'm going on this amazing diet and I'm going to get healthy. And then life happens. It's a birthday party. I'll just have a slice of cake.
Yeah.
I got home late. I'll order in a pizza. I was out at a busy day, grab a bit of chocolate. But you didn't think of the structure that would support you. Whereas when you clean the fridge out, when you look at the menu before you arrive, if you eat healthy snacks, always just have some nuts or whatever in your bag. Not that I'm talking about health coaching or anything like that,
No,
but it's the principle of a structure that supports you being successful. And it's very similar with your relationship. So it's one thing to say, okay, we know connection is important and we need to have that focus. So what structure helps you maintain that focus? And then you have to commit to it. So in my case, we have a day a week. It's the same day every single week. It's date night. It starts at a certain time because we had to set a start time because that stuff started getting on my nerves too. We had to say, oh, you know, my client finished at 8. No, date night does not start at 8 o'clock. It starts at 7.
Yes.
I don't care what you have to do up until then. Think of it as the most important client meeting you have every week. You can't miss it.
And that's a good way of looking at it. The most important business call, because you wouldn't just tell your boss, I can't do it. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't say to a client, oh, well, I can't be, you know, I haven't got time. I'm too busy. You all of that, you know that you set that time aside. And as you said, they're the most important client or colleague at work or whoever.
It's your most important appointment.
It is the most important appointment. Yeah, we might put off the appointment to the dentist, but generally you make that appointment and you say, I'm going to go to the dentist. Because that's it.
And you stick to it, right? So having that structure where you have whatever that time period is for you. So my husband and I, we have a date night once a week, and then we have a date weekend once a month.
Yeah.
So that we have a longer period of time to get, and some of it is just, I'll be honest, some of it is practical boring crap. Because for me, often let's just say the household stuff, it's not stuff either of us enjoy doing, but I tend to by default tend to pick it up, and it was annoying me. I said, no, we both need to do this. So we booked a whole weekend, and there's rules of engagement. I'm not gonna lie to you. There are rules of engagement, and the rules are, I am not allowed to fill 2 days with household boring crap. You know, I'm not allowed to sit down for 2 days and say, let's book the holiday, let's sort out the attic, let's run this errand. That I'm not allowed to do that. I have to have at least half of the day one half has got to be something really interesting we both want to do.
Yeah.
And he has to commit that we will sit down and look at business, you know, family finances and sort out the attic, and he's got to make the time to make that stuff happen.
Yeah.
So the it's not the compromise, but it's the understanding of what's important to both of us. He's like, it's not that I don't want to spend time with you, but if I feel like that's just going to be doing stuff I don't want to do, then I'm going to struggle to prioritize it. Right?
Yeah.
And my view is, well, we can't do that on a date evening because it's not sufficient time for us to get that stuff done. So I need to know that we've got time regularly to get this stuff done, so I feel supported.
Yeah. And you're doing it together.
Yes.
Because that's teamwork. And instead of saying, well, okay, I've got to do the housework while he goes and plays football or whatever the thing is. But that doesn't make sense to me, because I think if you both commit and say, right, let's do the chores, and it will take us half the time, and then we've got more time to do, maybe it's time on our own, because I think that's really important, but also time on them together. But you are doing things together. So it's all that, isn't it? I think, and I think what I'm hearing in your terms of engagement is almost like a contract. And I don't see any problem in that, because you would not walk into a job, you wouldn't set up a business, you wouldn't work with anybody unless you had a contract. So what's the difference between that and having a contract in your relationship? I see no problem in that.
It's an understand. It's
You're on the same page and that priorities are the same and what is okay and what isn't. I mean, if you get married, you made a contract. Because you entered into it in either a civil or religious ceremony and you made a commitment to each other. It was a contract.
I've never seen a problem. It sounds really bad, but I've never seen a problem with that because our values are similar, but what's important to us is sometimes a little bit different. And if I push him to be somebody he's not, or take away or impose things that just don't feel great to him, then that's not going to help. If he does the same thing to me, it just basically pulls us apart. So it helps us to understand, look, there's going to be times one of us is going to have to do something that we just don't really love doing, right? But at the same time, why is it we like it, we don't like it? So, I know there is no point fighting with him about his basketball. There is no point at all. But he also knows that if basketball takes priority more than I do, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have a big old problem and it's going to be World War III, right? And it's understanding how to find that balance. So, I need to feel, and it's working out what the best way to resolve it is. Yeah. So I'll give you a really tangible example. Neither of us love cleaning. Neither of us take pleasure or relax from scrubbing down a house, right? I love a tidy house. It's one of those things, it makes my heart sing. I'm like, yay, look at all this space. Love it. But what was and my tolerance for mess is much lower than his tolerance for mess. So it takes him longer to get to the point where he's like, I don't like this anymore. Yeah. Right. So what was happening initially is I would get frustrated. He hadn't even noticed there was a problem. Then I'd do all of this cleaning and then I'd make him wrong for having me do all the cleaning as if he'd imposed it upon me. Right. And then I'd insist, you must clean. And he's like, oh, I'm not a cleaner. But it's a typical sort of,
it is, isn't it?
Crazy tiffle you have, tiff you have over nonsense. And so in the end I said, well, what's important to me is I don't want to feel like this is all on me. And the truth is I don't mind tidying up occasionally, but I don't like doing the big deep clean, and it has to happen and you just won't do it. So then I feel like obliged to do it. So why don't we just pay for a cleaner? Yeah. And then neither of us have to do it. I've got more time for my business. The house is clean and tidy. So now I'm not nagging you. Everyone's a winner.
Yeah. And I think you've worked it out so well. And I think that's a really good example of finding a way around it. I hear couples talking about compromise. And I say, no, don't look at it as compromise. Negotiate. Because I think compromise feels like I've got to give in. That's what comes up for so many people. Oh, well, I've got to compromise. I don't want to compromise. Well, how about negotiating? And if you sit down and negotiate, the chances are you'll find the answer. And it may not be obvious. Like you don't like cleaning, but you want a clean house, and you're having that kind of power struggle, that battle that goes on. And then, well, between us, we think, well, just get cleaner. So that's what I think is so good about that communication and the negotiation.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. It's not about compromising. I genuinely don't believe in compromise. But you have to ask your question. I think the thing that I've observed come up for people, and if I go back to the scenario of the cleaner, it's getting attached to the house having to be cleaned by one of you. I'm not. I'm just attached to the house being clean. I'm not attached to the mechanism by which it happens. Nice. To me, it's irrelevant. Like, bring in an army of cleaners. My mum can come over once a week. I genuinely don't care how it happens. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to me, my time is important. It's just, look at it, I go, it's such a stupid fight to have where I'm arguing with you saying, like, you don't value my time. And he's like, it's not that I don't value my time. I value my own time, Lovelda. I don't want to do all this cleaning. I've got more important things to do with my time, right? And then that becomes something that's like, because I could get overly sensitive. Oh, is your time more important than my time then, And that's where you end up in this crazy, stupid spiral. And ultimately, all you're saying is we both like to be in a clean house.
Yeah.
And both of us value our time, that we'd rather not spend it cleaning the house. It's not something either of us takes pleasure in. right? So rather than me imposing it upon you because you don't take pleasure in it and I feel like I'm taking it on, why don't we just both let go of the obligation of cleaning and get it resolved in another mechanism? So therefore it's off the table. I mean, the only conversation is paying for the cleaner.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think when you're talking about I value my time, and you it's about valuing time, but it goes deeper than that. Because if you end up doing the cleaning and feeling resentful, then it's not your time being valued, it's being valued as a person.
And I think
you don't value me because you won't help sort it out. So what do you feel about me as a person?
but it's opening it up to a different way of resolution.
I love it.
What we tend to do as women is we'd hear that because like it's basically like a red flag to a bull. Like, I value my time. So you're saying I don't value my time? Like, you know, you can just see it. It's like you have literally just pressed the big red button and I'm about to go off. Like, why? Why are we having this conversation? But it's remembering actually the reverse of that is, wait, hold on a minute, Lovelda. You're not valuing your own time, and then you're getting annoyed that you're next to somebody who values their time so much they're not going to waste it on petty things like cleaning the house. But instead of looking at that as an opportunity to say, hold on a minute, here's an opportunity for me to make better use of my time, I'm choosing to get annoyed with him because he doesn't value it, and then effectively I'm not valuing his values. I'm saying your values are wrong. It's wrong that you value your time in this way, and I'm making it mean that therefore you don't value me. And the truth is, when you sit back and look at it, it doesn't mean any of that stuff. It just means it's just not that high up on my pecking order, and you're frustrated because it's not high up on your pecking order and you're not honoring it, so you're making me have to do it, and that's only going to upset me because it's not that important to me.
Exactly. So moving on from that, I think they're really, really good points. Yeah, you made some great points there. So how does that affect women where, you know, there is that fear of asking for help? So then it brings into a business fear of success. You talked about that briefly at the beginning, but there's more to it than that, isn't there? What is it about us as women that we have those struggles in business? You know, because you're constantly with women.
Yeah. So a couple of things, two main things. One is obligation, and two is a feeling of holding it together, like almost like a maternal instinct. So often we do a bunch of stuff that we never had to do and were never asked to do. We just picked them up by default, made it our job, and now make it a definition of ourselves. So the thing about being a woman in business is the way that the way that you define yourself in your relationship, and the definition of relationship needs to be defined by you and your partner.
Yeah.
Right. And often, especially in the media, and you know, we're only a few generations into women really, you know, the real swell of women becoming female leaders in business. And so most of our role models are our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts and our aunts, right? And they held down the fort at home. That's what they did.
Yeah.
But they weren't, some of them worked, but they certainly weren't taking on all the responsibility of owning a business. They'd go in, they'd do a job. And so our reference point is being the person who's got it all held together. And because our mums did it, our grandmothers did it, our aunts did it, and they always had it held together, it would make us a failure if we didn't. And then we take on the role our fathers did, going out there and pushing and being really ambitious, and forget they had the support of mum, aunts, grandmother, some of them secretaries at work, you know, basically an army of people supporting them. But we want to sit in both of those roles, and you can't. And so often it's an internal conflict. It's literally nobody else has put these onto us. And I remember when my husband and I first moved in together, And I remember that experience of going, how the heck have I now got all this extra stuff to do? Like, where did it come from? When I was left by myself, I didn't have to do all of this stuff. But now I'm like organizing your time and organizing my time, and it's joint calendar. Where did this stuff come from?
And you took it on unconsciously.
He never asked me to.
No, that's what I'm saying. Unconsciously, you just kind of fell into the role because
that's what wives do.
Yeah.
You know, and it would come up to Christmas and all of a sudden I would have project organized Christmas presents, and, you know, it's Christmas presents for my family plus, and before I just had my family, we simplified it. You know, we do like a secret Santa or something like that. No, now I've got all of my family and all of his family. And I'm like, what? And, you know, he's just a wallet. I'm like, why am I finding, searching, wrapping, naming, coordinating all of this stuff and then booking up the vacay? And it's not just then booking on my time. I've got to, you know, find that, where did this stuff come from? So that's the first thing, that these invisible contracts or unconscious contracts we've signed up to, where we really have to sit and review them and say, hold on a minute, wait. I mean, in my case, we're both business people. So I'm like, wait, my time is important as yours.
Yeah.
So either we're both sitting down and looking at these together, or I'm finding the ones for my family, or you're finding the ones for yours. And if you need some help, let's have that conversation. But I need to disconnect myself from this because I simply do not have the capacity to take both of them on. But it really is we've got to be very aware of these things and question what that is for us. And what does that relationship dynamic look like? Because I simply cannot be a business person and be able to follow the ambition to the extent that I want without you picking up some of the things that traditionally weren't masculine. I don't care. You're going to have to do it too. Or we need to work out what team we have for our family. Yeah. So does that mean that because we're so busy and we have so much focus on business, does that mean that we then ultimately might need a housekeeper, ultimately might need a cook? You know, does that mean that we're going to need to put that structure in place? Does that mean that we have a regular budget for food, you know, to order food in? Because I don't have time to cook every single night, you know? Mm. And so it's some of that stuff where we have all of these contracts we took on of things that, and it links to my next point, of things that we don't love doing. It's one thing if you love cooking or you love cleaning or you love organizing because it relaxes you. That stuff makes you, you know, because some people, that's how they unwind at the end of the night. They'll sit down, they'll make a lovely meal, and that's relaxation. For other people like me, I have to be in a certain mood to really want to indulge in cooking. But most of the time, if there's a lot going on, I just don't want to. I'm too tired to do it. So you've then got to work together to work out what that is. I mean, at one point we used to do a big cook once a month, and we'd cook like 5 different meals, but cook them in mass. Like, we were cooking for 10 people, freeze them, put them in the freezer, and we had ready-made meals. Like, that's how we dealt with it.
Yeah.
But you have to work together to work out that structure is. And the second point is then, so these unconscious contracts, and the second is obligation. And it's looking and it's the thing about obligation is that it's like this poison that seeps into your relationship, where take on one thing you don't like doing out of obligation, and then that brings another thing you don't like doing out of obligation. And the more obligation that you are taking on, because it's not like it was placed upon you most of the time, it's these invisible contracts that have an energy of obligation, which effectively means that it just breeds resentment over time. And sometimes it's your partner, but sometimes it's you because nobody told you to do it.
Definitely.
Nobody told you to do it. Nobody ever sat you down and said, that is my expectation of you. And if that's the expectation your partner has of you, and that's not what you want to do, that's a different conversation, right? But often with women, especially most of the women I've worked with, their partners have never said to them, we expect you to do this. But they like it, so they never say stop.
No, well, that's human nature, isn't it? Well, if somebody else will do it for you, why would you want to bother? Unless, of course, there is always the situation where you don't do it properly. You can't do it properly. You don't do it as well as you should do. Therefore, you're not, you know, and all of that comes into it, doesn't it, then? But yeah, if somebody else will do it for you, why not? I mean, if somebody said, I'll cook you dinner tonight, yes, please.
But it's genuinely looking at where is that nasty obligation energy.
Yes.
And something you said earlier where it's like they're not going to do it right, that's what gets women in trouble.
Yeah.
Because by virtue, what you're then effectively saying is the only way that this is going to work is if it's my way, and therefore you're wrong. And any dynamic where it's I'm right and you're wrong and it's my way or the highway is never going to work. Because if the tables were turned and you were sat in a position where somebody was always telling you you're wrong and you can't do it right, just imagine that. Imagine if you were doing that kind of with your kids. You're wrong. You can't do it right. You're just useless at this. And that niggles away at somebody. And just because it's a grown adult
exactly
does not make it any more acceptable.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think this is it, because it knocks someone's confidence. And that can be for either person in the relationship. And I guess if you have that feeling, you end up feeling not good enough. And if it started as a child, then I mean, it did for me. I grew up feeling not good enough, and it put me in every single situation. Not good enough daughter, not good enough pupil, not good enough wife, mother, employee. I mean, it just followed me all through my life.
Yeah.
Until I suddenly went, hang on a minute, I've got to stop this. This is stupid. But it seeps into everything. You just feel, you know, and I think then that stops people from growing, doesn't it? And I'm sure you see that quite a lot, that women want to succeed in business, but they have that horrible fear that they were told all their lives, well, you're not good enough at doing that.
Mm-hmm. And we've got to be aware of where we're putting that on somebody else. Yeah. Through our actions, and that's your responsibility within the relationship. That's when you've kind of got to go, oh, that was me. Ouch. But that's your responsibility. I had a saying I used to have with my mum when I first moved out of the house, and bless my mum, love her to bits. But my mother would come around occasionally and be like, Lovelda, you don't want to do that like that. And I'd say, no, Mum, you don't want to do it like that. You've got two options. You've got two options, Mum. Either you shut up and you put up, or you do it yourself in silence. Option 3 of whinging and bitching and moaning and telling me how it should be whilst you do it yourself is not an option. So it's two options, Mum. Either you do it yourself or you just keep your mouth shut. One of the two. And if you're going to do it, I don't want to hear about it. There's not an option of nagging and whinging and moaning. I'm happy with it like this. And when you're not here, you're happy with it like this too, because that's how it always is. I've been doing it like this in my house the last 10 years and it hasn't bugged you, except now you've seen it. Now you've got two options.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? You know, it's when one partner says to the other, oh, you don't, yeah, your duty, for example, it's up to you to clean the bathroom. And then the other one goes in and says, well, you never do it properly. Well, no, if they don't do it properly, then if you want to go in after them, then just do it and don't complain about it, because they've done it to the best of their ability or their standard. And you're right. It's or do it yourself and just, that's it.
Shut up and get on with it. But that nagging is just never going to help.
It doesn't.
For me, it's a balance. I think with my husband, he'll clean the dishes and he has a habit of missing a few bits. And so I just take them all back out again and put them back aside. But I don't whinge about it. I used to, oh, look at this. I just put it back. I just recycle them. Just take them out, put it back on the side. Do it next time.
The thing is, if you've done it yourself and you realise that you were packing the dishes away and you missed it, you would just do that. So why blame somebody else? You don't say, oh, you know, you don't beat yourself up and say, you didn't do that properly, for goodness sake. Why would you do that to somebody else? You know, oh, well, I missed that. Never mind.
It's the language that you use. So I think I went back to him and said, I'd really appreciate if you could just put a bit more love into cleaning the dishes, because I don't like being ill.
Yeah. And
I'm not making
so much nicer. And owning it and saying, I feel, or I think I would appreciate it. And that's it. Instead of saying, you haven't cleaned the dishes properly. is just so critical. And it really, well, it just escalates, doesn't it? Because the other person then becomes defensive, and then...
Well, you're just blaming. Nobody likes it when somebody comes and starts by pointing the finger. So there's no point me saying, oh, you've done it wrong again. Come and have a look at this. No good is going to come out of that. So I thought, well, how else can I present this in a way that will have the same result? Because I'm not going to just like tell him to stop doing them. Like if he thinks he could do it wrong to get out of it, that's not going to work. He's still going to have to do it. And so I thought, well, what would I really love? Well, I'd love it if he could put a bit more love and care and attention into doing the dishes.
Yeah.
And I think he said, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. So I said, the next time he did them, I said, all right, well, I'll show you what I mean, because you think I'm making this up. But it's a really, it's a grown-up conversation, not one that makes you wrong. In the same way that, like, if he asked me to go and, I don't know, sell from the stage, it's not my forte. I'm probably going to cock it up. But him telling me, oh, you're doing a rubbish job at this, is probably not going to make me want to do it anymore, is it? So, you know, he'd be better off saying, well, this was really great. You know, I appreciate that you had the thought to go and do the dishes. Like, I really genuinely appreciate that you went to do them. I mean, in the back of my head, I'm a bit frustrated. I've looked at them. They're a bit dirty still, but you know what? I'm just going to take that little win, because now you'll go and do it again. If you do it consistently like this, I'm just going to say to you, I love you doing the dishes, babe. I really do. I love it if you just put a little bit more attention, just a tad bit.
Exactly. And that's how we grow, isn't it? We grow from that praise and coming from a place of love. And I think you can take any kind of feedback if it's a place of coming from a place of love. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you do it in your relationships. I do it in my relationships. You do it in business, and yeah, so do I. You know, if I talk to clients, I don't tell them that what if they've done something or they're not happy with, or that I don't say, well, you know, if someone's cheated on their partner, and say, oh, that was a dreadful thing to do. They know that. They don't need me to beat them about the head about it. You know, it's okay. So you made a mistake. Why did that happen? What was going on? How can you move forward from it? They don't need it. None of us need it. And as you say, you know, in business, if you feel that you screwed up, you know you screwed up, mm-hmm. and you need that encouragement to move forward and grow as a person. So, yeah.
I met with an ex-colleague of mine yesterday, and he said something that I just love. He goes, it's just about being decent.
Yeah.
And and there's no other way to put it. In the same way as in business, with employees, with clients, it's just about being a decent person. Whether they've done right or they've done wrong, it's about just being decent in the way that you deal with people. Exactly. And a decent person, and most people are decent, good, meaning people. You know, most people are not that flawed that they genuinely want to cause a problem. And they get to that point because they feel like they're backed in a corner. They feel like they've left with no choice. And I don't believe there's never no choice. I think you've always got a choice. Even when you look at a situation, it feels like there's no choice. You've always got a choice. You've got a choice to keep it the same or a choice to do something different. And the doing something different, the reason you feel like you don't have a choice is because you're fearful of the consequences.
Yeah.
You're fearful of, oh, I don't have a choice because I have kids. I don't have a choice because I don't have a job. No, you always have a choice. You're just fearful that you will not be held, and you will not be safe if you make the choice that's actually right for you. That's what's going on. I'm fearful that, you know, the kids are then going to be messed up, so I'm staying here. Well, is this environment going to support them being grounded and feeling loved and supported and having a good role model for a relationship? Or are you actually stooping them in an environment which is going to make it more difficult for them to understand what good quality connections look like and to protect their own boundaries? Yeah. Because they're just learning from what's going on here. And are you allowing your fear to then become part of a cycle of fear, which is unconscious? And so often the decisions we need to make, it's the unspoken, difficult conversations,
yeah,
that cause the most problems in a relationship. It's that I'm not going to say that I don't feel loved. I'm not going to say that I don't feel sexy. I'm not going to say that, you know, the spark isn't there anymore. Even though for me right now, that's the most honest thing that I can say, because it's genuinely how I'm feeling. And it doesn't mean it was never going to be there. It doesn't mean I don't want it there. Just right now for me, this is my truth and my realness.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem that we do to rip ourselves off in life and relationships is where you see it the most, because we're community type beings. We like to be connected. Relationships is where you really see it surface. But the biggest problem we can create for ourselves in life is not speaking our truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, beneath that is fear, and it's all about the family systems or experience before, or the baggage we brought with us. Yeah, fear. It's fear. And I think I'd add to that assumptions, because we could say, based on our own experience, we believe if we speak our truth, this will happen. It's our stuff, not theirs.
I had a similar, I had a conversation a while back with someone, and they were saying, "Oh, Lovelda, I'm really, you know," a message came out, "Lovelda, I'm really scared. I think they're going to leave." It was actually a client rather than a partner. And I said, "Well, you don't know that. They've just said hi." I'm not saying that you're wrong. Your instinct might be absolutely correct. But at the moment, you're in a space of assumption. They might just want to have a coffee with you. So before you start acting as if that's the reality, perhaps you just go and confirm that.
Yeah.
And if it is, then we'll deal with that, right?
Yeah.
And it turned out she was right, but it was just that starting point of going, but they haven't actually said it. They literally just said, "Can we have a call?" They haven't given you any idea of what that call's about, so there's no point, right? And it was just, you know, throughout the conversations she was having in relation to that particular client, it was a point where it's like, no, it's just assumption, babe. You're hearing something, and based on your fear because of where you are right now, you know, what's going to, is it what's going to happen with the money? Is it, she's going to go and say something bad about me in the media? Whatever it is, whatever the fear is about what it means if she leaves, it's kind of irrelevant what you think it is. And it could be a partner, whatever that fear is of what it means about you if they leave, just understand that's what's going on in your head. It's not real. And it doesn't exist yet. It's not to say it might not exist, but you haven't validated it. So people can surprise you, and things can go in very different directions. And sometimes they surprise you for the better, sometimes they surprise you for the worse. But to interact with anybody based on assumption is what gets us into trouble.
It does.
And when people do it to us, the number of times you'll say to people, "Well, if you'd only asked, I genuinely didn't have a problem with that." If you'd said something, I probably would have come along with you. It sounds like it would have been great fun.
Yeah, exactly. And it is that. And I think there's just that, it's that combination. There is an assumption, so that brings the fear. And as you say, fear is just a thought. And you never know. And you can get yourself so tangled up by that whole kind of churning around in your head and playing it out. And that's what's going to happen. And I'm sure they're going to say that. And then you end up in anxiety. And then when you approach the person, you probably go at them because you're defensive. And then it's just...
Nothing's even happened yet. And you've already jumped 50. Why don't you just stay in the present moment? It's like you've worked out the future, then you've come back to the present moment and you interact as if you're in the future. You interact with that version of them. And the truth is, you haven't even started the conversation yet. It's like, when you think of it that way, you literally sat down, concocted a story, made the story your current reality, and then gone into battle.
Yes. They haven't just written the next chapter of the book. They've written the whole book and know the ending. And it's just, hang on, can you just stay on this page?
Just stay right here on this page. There was somebody ages ago who'd I remember being in a tizzel about something. I can't even remember what it was now. It was that big of a deal. But in the moment, it was huge. You know, I was like all up in this tizzel. And, you know, fear and anxiety, and I got myself in a right mess. And I can't remember who it was. They said, Lovelda, what's wrong right now? Like right now in this moment, what is wrong? Are you cold? Is it too hot? Is your house on fire? Are you starving? Like right now in this moment, what's wrong? And I went, nothing. Because there wasn't anything. I was comfortable in my house, basically so stuck in my head in such a story that I'd forgotten nothing was actually wrong.
Yeah.
In that exact moment, nothing was wrong. I was in no physical danger. I wasn't hungry, wasn't thirsty, I was pretty comfortable. There's money in the bank account. There's a nice roof over my head. It was great weather outside. You know, it was genuinely in that moment, everything was great. But I'd projected, and that's what it is. It's the projection so much into the future. And then I just locked myself in this torturous chamber of my own creation.
Yeah.
And then decided everything was a mess.
And I think that's where a lot of anxiety and stress comes into the world. And people seem to be more stressed and anxious than ever. But it's so many conversations that they haven't had. And then I'm sure they're going to say that, and that's what they're, and I think the worst thing is they don't have the conversation. They'll have a text or an email and they read into it. And I think they put their emphasis on it when there isn't. And, you know, if someone reads a text back to me or an email, I'm thinking, well, I didn't actually, if I'd read that, I wouldn't have put the same construction on it. Mm-hmm. But they put their stuff into it and they read it in an angry mood and they're, and hang on a minute, let's just take a step back a minute.
Because and I know them, so I know that's what they meant. Really? A golden rule, there's a golden rule in sales and business, which is a difficult conversation always happens in person or on the phone, never in an email, never, ever, ever, ever by any form of text form. The difficult conversation, because I worked as an account manager, it's basically sales for existing clients for 8 years. And the golden rule was if you had to deliver some bad news to somebody, you always, always did it in person, if you could, if it was practicable, or it was a phone call. Yeah. And your client always knew it wasn't good, but you never did that in email. Just tell me what it is. No. Because you cannot, it's not that it's about control. You get, if most of your communication is through body language and tonality, you've basically stripped out the stuff that adds the meaning to the conversation and you cannot respond to it. You cannot, you know, you're in no position to direct and give context to the conversation. You can't react to those visual clues. You can't see the heartbreak, and it's fear that has you. It's you being a chicken that you don't want to look somebody in the eye. The least you can do is respectfully sit and look somebody in the eye and tell them what you have to say.
Exactly.
And if it's not practical to look them in the eye, do it over the phone.
Yeah. Totally agree. And I see that again with people dumping each other by text. It's just, how could you do that? You've had a relationship with somebody for an amount of time, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, the least you can do is face up, you know, like you say, not be a chicken.
But the irony is when the tables are turned, what do you say? The least they could have done was have the decency to have called me. Well, you know what? Sometimes you got to grow a set and do it yourself.
Exactly. I agree totally. There is that to it as well, because putting it on the other person, really, sometimes you just have to say, it is always looking for the other person. Well, they didn't do this, or they didn't phone me, or they didn't buy me a present, or they didn't take me out. Well, hang on a minute. What did you do towards it? And it's always as if they're waiting for the other person to do it all the time. And I would say in any relationship, it's not what you get out of a relationship, it's what you put into it that makes it richer. It doesn't matter what relationship it is. If you open an investment account, you would not sit there and go, oh, I've opened the account. Now I want to see how much interest I've got out of it. You wouldn't. you've got to put the money in, you've got to put it in there to earn the interest. So how can you get your money to grow if you just say, I've opened an account and I'm going to wait for it? Same with a relationship.
Sit back and let me see what you're going to do for me.
Yeah, exactly. How many times you heard that? I've heard it a million times.
I used to have a saying when I was dating, and before I would leave a relationship, it was towards the end of my kind of dating career, if you could call it that. But I eventually got to the point where I thought, right, if before I can leave and say I did everything I could do, I need to be able to honestly answer, was I being the person I'd be in my ideal relationship? Yeah. Because if I've run away from conversations, if I've not been as loving, if I've not been as attentive, if I've not shown up, if I've not done any of those things or been the person that I'd be in my ideal relationship, if I've been holding back and waiting for them, then, my view was my ideal partner will show up when I show up as a person I want to be in that ideal relationship. They'll connect with that person, right? But if I'm resonating at a different vibration and kind of, I will attract somebody who's there, and then I'll be frustrated. I'll be like, this is really annoying. Like, I don't want you. How many times do women get into relationships? Oh, I'll put on my best, at the beginning. And now that they know me, I'll reveal it all.
Yeah.
How confusing is that for somebody? Like, I thought, who is this person? This isn't the one. Exactly. Being on the other side of that, like if your partner suddenly switched, it was like, I thought you were really loving, but it turns out that you actually, you're a bit of an egomaniac. Well, if I'd known that in the beginning, I'd never have dated you. Like, why do we do these things? I thought you were really put together, but it turns out that you're quite sensitive. Well, I don't want a sensitive person. I liked that quality about you. And then what do you say? Nobody likes a sensitive woman.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah, exactly. It goes on forever, doesn't it? And all that stuff it's either, it's projection, and it's assumptions, and we just have to face up to what part we play in life, really, and in relationships, whether it's business, friendships, romantic. I think it's looking at ourselves first. And so many people just don't do that, do they? They just...
It's because it's scary, Wendy.
It's scary, I know.
Sometimes we look and we see things we don't like.
I know. How many times I've sat and thought back to things I've done in the past, when I was a lot younger, and I've actually still blushed at that because it was just not a nice thing to do, or way to behave. And facing up to that and saying, that was really horrible. I was a bitch at that point. Mm-hmm. It's not a nice place to be, but it's an honesty. It's an honesty. And when we can face up to the honesty of ourselves, then I think we grow as people. Mm-hmm. And we can make choices then.
And a lot of relationships is about that really kind of raw, honest conversation with each other. And if you're not prepared to be honest with yourself,
you can't be honest with anyone.
You've lost the battle before you even started. And it doesn't need to be a battle, but it's the honesty, and then it's speaking your truth. And so sometimes you can be really honest with yourself, and then it's building a great quality relationship, ironically, takes a huge amount of courage.
It does. Well, I think when you really have that really deep, intimate relationship, it's showing all your vulnerability, and it's like open heart surgery, because you are trusting yourself and the other person with so much. But I think to be able to be that honest in a relationship and have that deep intimacy is just so special. It's magical.
There's a real thing in understanding if it doesn't work, you'll be fine. Because I think the fear is, I'll open all this stuff up, and then what if it doesn't work? Yeah, it's not going to kill you. No. It'll hurt, but it was going to hurt anyway.
Exactly. So why not face the truth?
Yeah. 5-10 years, whether it was the best relationship in the world or it was trying, ending the relationship is going to hurt anyway.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt anyway. So at least let that pain be something where at least you could look back and go, we had some amazing times though. It was good. It was good.
Yes. And I was true to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's something about that as well, isn't there? But yeah, it's great to look back and say that. And lots of people can't. They just remember the bad times. And yeah, of course you do. When it ends, of course you feel that heartache and remind yourself of the bad times. But to be able to look afterwards and say, you know, but there were some great times and that was good. That person wasn't all bad, or that relationship wasn't all bad. That's a real benefit, isn't it?
I like what you said when you say you can look back and be like, but I was true to myself. Because I think at least then you can look at the relationship and say, I wouldn't have done it any different.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no regret in it. You'd say, I wouldn't have done it any different because I was true to myself.
Yeah.
Whereas if a relationship ends and you think, oh, crap, if only. And it's not if only I was somebody different. It's if only I was me.
Yes. Yeah. I tried to be the person I thought they wanted me to be.
Yeah. But if only I was me, at least I could accept that we just weren't meant to be. But I wasn't me. I was somebody else. They didn't like that person. And it's so frustrating when afterwards you're like, oh, okay, so genuinely all you just wanted was just me? Oh, oops.
Yeah. Oh, that's been it's been so lovely. I know we could chat for hours. I know we could. We are going to have to finish soon. But is there anything that I've missed? You know, there's something that you really, really want to say before we come to a close?
No, I feel like we've covered a lot, darling.
We have, haven't we?
You know, I think the main thread is really just be true to yourself, and don't let your fear stop you from having the conversations you need to have, because you deserve to have the relationship that will just set your heart alight.
Oh, that's beautiful to end on. So, Lovelda, I know you are an amazing coach, a speaker coach. You help people, women, you work with women. And how do people get in touch with you if they'd like to learn more about you? I mean, all the details will be in the show notes, but how do they get in contact with you?
There are two ways, really. You can either email me at lovelda@lovelda.com, or if you connect in my Facebook group, then I'm pretty visible in there, and that's World-Class Female Speakers. It's a free group to join. You'll get lots of ongoing content. But if you're wanting to work with me one-to-one or learn a little bit more about what that would look like, then yeah, just drop me an email.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight, and I've really enjoyed talking to you and sharing ideas, and thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Wendy. It's been wonderful.
I really hope you enjoyed the podcast today, and you can always listen to others by clicking on my website, www.yourrelationshipspecialist.co.uk, and finding the podcasts on there. You can also learn much more about me and get in touch or sign up for my newsletter. So until next time, bye for now.